when you build this mansion properly, it is something I promise you that will not only last you a lifetime, but serve you a lifetime, serve your family, serve your community, serve the people around you, and even greater than that. What we see all the time is when built on a solid foundation, it actually leaves a legacy.
Hello, and welcome to Build Your Remarkable Practice podcast. This podcast is dedicated to chiropractors who are in the seasons of launching and building their practice. Join myself, Dr. Lona, and my co-host, Dr. Bobby, as we have conversations each week as it relates to building the practice of your dreams. And remember, you can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. We're here to lead you on the way.
What's up, team? So welcome to the Chiropractic Build podcast. And I must say, I'm super pumped to be having this conversation with you guys. This is something that's been on my heart and on Dr. Lona's heart, I know, for a long time. And looking at chiropractic and looking at all the challenges that we face, I must say one of the things that becomes apparent to us immediately is that those challenges are not unique. Those challenges are not like customized to every single person. So as Dr. Lona and I were sitting here a couple of months ago, talking about our different experiences in chiropractic, we thought, you know what? Success leaves clues. Success leaves clues. So in this podcast, guys, this is designed to teach you about exactly what are those clues that lead to reproducible practice success in chiropractic. And when I say success, what I mean by that is success for you. Because one thing I think that's really evident is success is different for different kinds of people. And I love what one of our good friends, Dr. Francis, says about this when he says, be careful how you define it, because you're going to spend a lifetime pursuing it. So we're going to be talking about, yes, the systems, the process, the procedures, all the things that I know you guys want to know, all the things that you'll message us and email us about. How do we do dinner workshops? How do we do conversion processes? How do we set up care plans and mapping? All these things that lead to predictable success inside of your practice. We're going to be unpacking all of it. And I'm super excited to be joined on this awesome podcast with the amazing Dr. Lona. Dr. Lona, what's going on? How you doing, lady?
Hey there. Thanks for getting up early. We're on really different time zones right now. So it's going to be fun when we make magic happen on this podcast. And like you said, Bobby, when you underline the word reproducible, I think that's a lot of what the build season is about, is like, how do I do this thing and how do I do it better? And how do I not reinvent the wheel? And so I'm assuming, Bobby, we see you up on stage at different chiropractic events, but you didn't get there in a vacuum. And that's a lot of what this podcast is going to be about, is how do we help shed some light on these things that other people help us get to the place where we are. And we want to bring that to you in a digestible format.
Absolutely. And, as I was going through that journey, Lona, one thing that I must speak into, and a real motivating factor for me to really give back to chiropractors around the globe, is I found this one thing in the profession that was very evident for me early on. I think I graduated now about 11 years ago. I remember when I first started and I was struggling. It was a really difficult journey for me in the beginning. I had no clue, quite frankly. I'm sure you'll hear about my story more about what I was doing. One thing that I really loved and appreciated is that people were always willing, if I asked, to pay it forward. People were always willing if I asked them for help. And I'm like, you know what? When I'm struggling with new patients, I don't know how to get newies in through the door. Or if I was like, I don't know how to convert some, I'm just giving a recommendation just randomly that's kind of pulled out of I don't even know where. If I were to actually reach out in the right sources, one thing that I found is that people were always willing to help me, nurture me, help me actually like start to unearth the answers myself and take me on that journey. And so a large part of this for me is, through the journey that I've had in chiropractic now, paying it forward and helping others achieve the same thing. Because one thing I know is that as a chiropractor, we have the best product in the world, hands down, full stop, no doubt in my mind whatsoever. Think about this. We're not in the industry of selling pens or selling water bottles. We're in the industry of saving people's lives. And we do that through natural healthcare means. I mean, how amazing is that? We're working with the number one asset for everyone, which is health. So a large part of this for me is paying it forward. And success does leave clues. So let's talk about those clues. Let's put a magnifying glass over them and let's make sure that you can reproduce them yourself. What do you think, Lona?
I love that. I love that. And when you say like paying it forward, I think when you really get that foundational knowledge that chiropractic gives to us, and that's why we're going to start at the foundation as we're going through build, it's like your heart gets connected in because your life transforms. And Bobby, I know chiropractic has made your life wildly better, and it has for me too. And that's because I was willing to learn not only the philosophy of chiropractic and how to apply it to myself, but also to my business, and how to, again, get the right mentors at the right time to show me how to not knock my head against the wall. So I love this concept of like just investing in those that maybe are having a struggle right now in the build season, and how do we help speed the trajectory up for them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's do it. Let's roll up our sleeves, guys. We are going to get through this. And I love what Lona just said in terms of foundations. When you build a house, when you build anything, quite frankly, it's built in solid foundations. And if those foundations, quite frankly, suck, the house is going to collapse, right, Lona?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Or you're gonna have to rebuild it. Yeah.
Exactly. Or you'll either be rebuilding it or repairing it or trying to fix it or do damage control, right? So I know we're going to be getting into all the funky stuff that you guys want to learn about systems, process, procedures, but the foundational series is really essential because it gives you that solid base upon which you can build this amazing mansion on. And when you build this mansion properly, it is something, I promise you, that will not only last you a lifetime, but serve you a lifetime, serve your family, serve your community, serve the people around you, and even greater than that. What we see all the time is when built on a solid foundation, it actually leaves a legacy. And I know that at the moment, you might not even be thinking about legacy, but I can tell you, when your practice turns into something that's actually functioning as a business, that's reproducible, that's transferable, that does leave a legacy. That leaves a legacy, and it gives you options, opportunities down the line in terms of freedom and choice and exiting and making sure everyone's still being looked after. So what better place to start than from the beginning, building it up properly? So Dr. Lona spoke about the foundations of chiropractic. And I think the first thing that we want to talk about is, well, one thing I know that I've observed, and tell me if this is the same for you, that in chiropractic, people can often be focused on the wrong thing at the wrong time. So I know when I first started, my first day in practice, I came to my practice, okay, opened the book, had a look, expected all these amazing names to be in there. And all I saw was blank white space. So I remember sitting there on that first day, twiddling my thumb, and the question that came to my mind straight away was, how do I get more new patients? I used to think it was just a new patients thing. I just got to get new patients in through the door. So really, if I was focused on just newies, maybe I wasn't focusing on the right thing. In fact, looking back at it right now, I know that I wouldn't have been focusing on the right thing. So Lona, what's been your experience? Talk to us about what have you noticed? There's different seasons in the chiropractic career, and each season has a unique set of focuses that you should put your energy into. And each season comes with its own unique set of challenges equal that we have as well. What's been your experience? Why don't you take us through the different seasons in the chiropractic career, and ultimately how can we identify which one we're in?
Sure, I would love to. All right, so launch is obviously where you're preparing yourself to open those doors of your practice. So Bobby and I have both been through launch, probably more than once. And that's like all the things that you can think of, like I'm going to need a space to do it in. How am I going to practice? How many square footage and rooms am I going to have? What's my marketing plan? Like Bobby alluded to, how am I going to get people in the door, which is probably the most frequently asked question. As you know, we know that we're going to have to bring people in, but how do we do that? But even things like, gosh, I don't know legally what I need to have in place. Like, how do I set it up for the taxes that I'm going to need to pay? What does that even mean? I've never paid myself before. There's so many questions. And I think the blessing and the curse here is most of the times we have no awareness to how little we actually know, even though we just completed this really amazing thing like chiropractic college that has given us our ticket to ride the bus. And now the real schooling starts. But many times we're unaware of how much we have yet to learn to prepare us to actually do this thing called chiropractic practice successfully. So there is an element of ignorance is bliss there, depending on where you're at in that stage. And so launch phase is like that 6 months to a year before you're going to open, and the preparation you're going to want to go through so that you can launch well and do it right the first time. And then the build season is where now those doors are open. And now you have that problem of like, maybe there isn't enough new patients coming in to build the practice that you want to build, or maybe they're coming in and they're not coming back and there's a conversion issue and you're not sure what the problem is. Why don't they quote unquote get it? Or you haven't maybe been an employer before and now you're trying to manage your staff and your assistants, but the follow through hasn't been good and you want to blame them for everything. But at the end of the day, you got to look at yourself in the mirror. So there's certainly team issues that arise in build as you maybe have grown to a certain level, but now it feels like you're so busy, quote unquote, but you look at the books and it's like, it's not really that profitable, and there's a lot of stress involved. So there can be a whole gamut of problems there that need to be unearthed, whether it's system issues. Most of the time there's system issues, team issues, management issues of like, how do I run a team and have everyone want to win together? So creating cohesion there. And then scale is
I remember when I was, I'm going to jump in for a second. I remember when I was in Bill, Lona, right? And I'm like, all right, this is good. I'm getting some good momentum here. I think probably visit wise, maybe I was on like 170, 180 visits a week, right? But literally every Monday when I'd rock up to my practice, guys, when you're in that build season, it's like you're bench pressing the whole practice. You're like, oh my goodness, I had team issues. I'm like, I didn't get it. I've hired these people. I had, I think, 2 employees at the time. They're supposed to be helping me. At the end of the day, they're almost like unhelping me, if that's even such a thing, right? It's like, I'm doing it all myself. Move over. I can do it. I'll convert them. I'll get them mapped out. I'll get them signed up, right? What I realized is that wasn't reproducible and scalable. So build is that season where, yeah, you're head down, bum up, grinding. Maybe you built yourself a great job, right?
Yes, totally. Thank you for that. And I think you might also be correcting issues that you could have corrected in launch had you known some things, right? Like I remember for us, this practice I stand in right now, we had to do a couple different build outs because I didn't do something correctly the first time. And then all of a sudden I need to knock down a different wall. And I realized I had put my CA in a corner and there was just issues with our like spatial layout. And as you start to see people, you realize, oh, this is not good flow. And I have created a problem for myself. So these all get unearthed in build, certainly. And so some people stay in build their entire career, which is something to think about too, where when Bobby said, like, you've built yourself a job, you know, it's like, what happens when I don't show up at the practice? Like, how big of an issue is there? And how long can that go on for? Like, can I take a vacation? Could I take a 2-week vacation? Could I have a maternity leave? You know, and for women in practice, that's a really big question of like, and what happens once you build a family or whatever's happening there. So these conversations of what has become repeatable and where does the ball drop? Bobby, you just had a baby, so I'm sure you recognize that.
You struck me right where it matters on. Absolutely. I mean, we had our little one now 13 months ago, right? And I can tell you, my wife and myself are both chiropractors. And so, you know, if you haven't done build and then scale successfully, that's a really difficult thing. We were really blessed. I mean, our little one now is 13 months actually in 2 days' time. And my wife, Yolna, has had the space and the freedom to, you know, take that bonding and take that process as long as she requires. So she's been out of practice now 12 months, 13 months. She's just kind of like dabbling back in now. And the only reason that's possible is because you have an amazing team, great processes, a practice that actually functions as a business that gives you that freedom to step out and, you know, play that role that she needs to play of like mom, mother, and nurturing our little one. And equally on the other side as well, on myself. I remember, you know, she was our first one. So Sophia's our first little baby. And I remember in those last couple of weeks in the pregnancy, and I remember when she was first born, you know where I wanted to be? Just at home with them, right? I wanted to be there. We did a home birth. So I wanted to be there, you know, the next couple of weeks. I didn't want to go anywhere. I wanted to be at home and serve that role of a male and protector and holding the space and giving freedom to our little one and to my beautiful wife to like start developing that amazing relationship. So equally as a guy, we need to have that freedom. And I stepped out of practice. For me, the perfect amount of time was about 5 weeks. I had 5 weeks off. And you know what? Came back to a practice that was humming along exactly the same. In fact, even better than when I left. And that's only possible if you do the next season, which I'm sure you're going to share with us now. And that's scale and you do it properly and well, right?
Yeah. And it's beautiful. And that's why we want to do this, is because it, like, yes, we want to be great stewards of chiropractic, bringing it out into the world because it is so life-changing. And at the same time, we should be able to have a beautiful practice that supports our life at the same time, so we can lead a beautiful life, be with our kids when we want to be with our kids, go for vacations, whatever that is, whatever your version of that. If you build properly, it's going to lead into this next stage, which is scaling, which means whether you're there or not, to whatever the degree that is, you know, things are happening. I remember the first time I left my practice and people were still being adjusted, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is a beautiful thing. Because
I remember that feeling. We had an open practice as well. My first kind of like associate, which was my wife, by the way, and she's in the room next door doing a day 2, just converted into care. And I can hear her because we had like T-bar setups, right? And this person's lying down to get adjusted. And I was like, oh my goodness, the practice is actually making an impact and making income, and I'm not having my hands on anyone. This is amazing.
Yes, it is a good feeling. And it's a good feeling because you built it to be something that could be transferred to someone else. So those two aspects are so intimately connected, because while you're scaling, the people working with you, the other DCs, et cetera, are going to be going into the build themselves to know the systems, to be able to do them, and like provide the care that has been the bread and butter that built it to the point that you could scale. So scale has its own set of headaches, which is like learning how to step into a role where maybe you're not needed. And I think this is incredibly common in chiropractic, that we puff our chests up about how many people we see a week. And then all of a sudden this idea of like, maybe someone else in my practice would see more people than me is like, I have to rethink about everything that I've made myself up to be at that point. And so that is part of this going through the scale process, is recognizing, what am I actually trying to build here? And who am I going to need? And who do I have to become? And what do I also have to let go of?
Yep, 100%. I love what you just said there. I remember that, which really a large part of it, I get it. It's fueled by wanting to have a sense of achievement. It's fueled also by element of an ego, and there can be healthy ego, right? There can definitely be unhealthy ego as well. But I remember that need of like, just see as much volume as possible. I was in that category. I was like, you know what? 800 visits a week, I can see them all. 900, I can see them all. And I remember the wake up call that I had on it. For me, that was, with the town that I practice in is a town of roughly between 8 to 12,000 people in our specific kind of like, we're in a city, but of the towns that we service in that city, in that first location that we're in. I remember at that time we were seeing thousands of people a month. And I would walk in the streets thinking, man, I should know everyone. I should know everyone. And I'm walking the streets in my suburbs, right, of 8 to 12,000 people. And I realized, like, sure, every now and again I bump into someone that I know. But the reality is the overwhelming majority of people, I have no clue who they were. And there I am thinking, man, look at all the people that we're serving. Yet every now and again I bump into somebody, but the overwhelming majority of people actually had no clue. So it made me realize, hang on, these people all deserve chiropractic. They all should be getting adjusted. They all should be going and visiting a chiropractor regularly in order to keep their body in prime condition. And what if I just 2,000 a week on my own, will I be able to see all of them? No. What if I double it again and just 4,000 a week on my own? Am I going to see all of them? I'm not even making a drop in the pond. And so that was my realization that, man, the only way that we can get this amazing life-changing product to people is if we learn how to scale and we learn how to successfully build teams and successfully build and nurture associates. And you know what? I love the saying that a good leader is that who can build a following. So sure, if you can build a following of people and you're serving whatever number that is, good leader. A great leader is that person who can create and build other great leaders as well. So that's what scale for me is all about. It's about building great leaders, great CA leaders, okay, that can lead our community and they can help hold people accountable and move them towards the health outcomes that they want to get. But also great DC leaders and associates that they also know how to successfully build. They also know how to build an amazing practice, like you said, as part of an amazing life as well. And then if in turn ownership is on the cards for these people, great. Have a program, have a process, an exit process where we nurture them, we take them through. I love to say for our associates, we love to teach them the systems of build. So we spend a good 18 to 24 months nailing systems. What we're going to be talking about on this podcast a lot: attraction, conversion, retention. And after about 18 to 24 months, they get a pretty good sense in that. People are scaling, they're getting great visits, all right? They're serving a great amount of people, they're making great impact, they're making great income as associates. Then, if someone wants to have ownership, I love that. I encourage them. I'm like, that's awesome. Great. Then we spend a 6 to 12 month process or period teaching you about the ownership side of chiropractic. We're going to teach you about things like marketing, about overheads, about staff, about development of people, okay, about conversion process, all the behind the scenes stuff that you don't really have visibility into as an associate. We're going to spend your time teaching all that. So by the end of it, you're going to be someone that's trained up to a point where you can super successfully run your own practice. Now, whether we run that together and we do some element of a partnership and we say, hey, let's synergize and work together and use our team and our assets and build you up quicker, that's cool. Whether the person's like, and we've done that, whether the person's like, you know what, I love you, but I'm moving to the other side of the country, right? And it's a clean exit. There's ways to do clean exits as well, where the practice they're leaving, there's not this big drop in numbers every single time, but instead there's this beautiful takeover with the next associate, and the next associate just rides on the success of the previous person. And the person who's left now has all the skill sets needed to be successful on their own. So Scale when done properly, I absolutely love it. And I feel as though that's the key for us really taking chiropractic forward and solving so many of the problems and issues that we see that are huge in the profession.
So good. And also this blew my mind when I learned this, that there's only 100,000 chiropractors in the world. And so like, first of all, like we're privileged to just be able to lay on a chiropractic table and receive an adjustment. But at the same time too, like what Dr. Bobby said, like those of us who do have a love for the business end of it and can build and then scale and employ chiropractors that just love the art and the philosophy and want a place where they can serve people, like there is a wealth of people out there that need chiropractic that don't even know what it is yet, because we need to scale as a profession. So, and when we would be at that point where we're ready to exit our practice, now hopefully you have an associate you could sell it to, or the practice is systematized in a way where it's a much more inviting opportunity for someone coming in to want to purchase your practice, which is the fourth category here, which would be that you launched your practice, you built your practice, you scaled your practice, and now you are at the season where you would be exiting your practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And so talk to us a little bit about exit. So exit, I know when I first heard this concept of exit, I'm like, man, I don't even want to think about that. That's so far away. I think when I first heard about it, I was like 28 years old, cruising to practice was, this beast. And I was loving it. I was like, exit? Why would you ever exit this thing? But, as you start to go through and as you start to realize, it's like everyone is going to get to a point they want to exit. Now, exit might mean they're selling their moving state, right? Maybe you're going to move to a new location. Exit might be, I'm exploring other business opportunities, other business ventures. Exit might be, I'm looking to pull back. But whatever the reason, one thing I can guarantee you is everyone, if you're listening to this right now, you will come to a time that you're going to look at and start having conversations about exiting, whether that's exiting partnerships, whether that's exiting practices, okay? And here's one thing that I know. If you've done launch well, which means you've started even before you get out of school, and then launch really like that first, like Dr. Lona said, 6 months to a year in practice, and you've done launch well, and you've set up everything properly, and then you've gone to build, and you've successfully navigated build, you've learned all your systems process, you've grown yourself, you've gone to the level that you want to get to serve all your needs, and now you're looking to go, and you've done scale well, where you've added associates, then you've added team, you've expanded your offering, you've taken your practice to 7 figures and beyond. Okay, you're going to get to a point that if you've done that well, when you're ready to exit, you're going to exit profitably, okay, because you've actually built an asset that's worth money and not just a job that's dependent on your personality. You're going to exit gracefully, which means everyone that's in your office, that's reliant on your office, whether that's team members, that quite frankly, that's their livelihood, or whether that's practice members that have allowed us the privilege to serve them, and some of them now maybe for years and decades. Every single person, even in your absence, is going to get looked after, because we've got a proper way to exit. We've got a graceful way to exit, a profitable way to exit, and a way that leaves a legacy. And you know what? A lot of the ducks that we work with, they exit, Lona, and they might stay on as an associate. They might say, you know what? I want to exit and I want to kind of pull back, but I still want to adjust. I still love to adjust, maybe like 2 shifts a week or 3 shifts a week or whatever it is. The reality is, though, when you've done it properly, you have the freedom to choose, and that's what it's about. Freedom. I know that's one of your core values. I know that's one of my core values as well. And exit really is that point where we're moving to the next thing, whatever that thing is for you. And I can tell you, you'll find that journey much easier if you've done scale properly and you've done it well. Dr. Lona, what's been your experience with this?
Yeah. So in my experience, I've had multiple practices. And so I have actually gone through launch, build, scale, and exit in one of the practices. And currently I'm going through exit in another. And so, yeah, like TRP and what they have laid out here for how well articulated it is as we move through each season. I've lived it in a couple experiences, and I know that like it doesn't happen by chance. So you don't exit well just randomly. And whether that's exiting because you have to or exiting because you're forced to, like having the forethought to just know that that is a season you will be in at some point is really an important part of understanding the trajectory of your career.
Yep, absolutely. Spot on the mark. So there you have it, guys. So first bit of homework feels into this. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to identify, first of all, what season are you in? Because the season that you're in dictates everything in terms of what you should be focusing on right now. Meaning, if you're in launch and you're maybe listening to this and you're still in school, you're graduating soon, or maybe your first year out, sometimes even like first 6 to 12, 18 months out, you're in launch. And there's things that we should be focusing on launch. You've got to learn how to build certainty, how to build conviction, how to build clarity around your product, about your offering. We've got to learn how to start marketing ourselves, how to build a tribe. Or maybe you're listening to this and you're like, you know what? I'm at a certain visit amount. It's almost irrelevant. I'm at 100 visits a week, 150, 180. And you know what? I've been there for 5 years. And I kind of feel like I've had 5 years of a repeated experience rather than 5 years of a compounded experience. I look back on the last 5 years, really, if I'm honest with myself, I'm in a pretty similar position to what I was 5 years ago. Okay. You might look around and say, I've got 1 team member, I've got 2 team members. Maybe you haven't done build properly. And you might say, I've got an associate. I'm not at capacity that I want to be at. That associate's nowhere near the capacity I want to be at. You're in build. And when you're in build, your focus points really need to be around process, procedure, attraction, conversion, retention. How do you learn predictable systems that lead to predictable growth so that you can do season 3 properly? And maybe you're listening to this and you know what? You've done that successfully. And you're like, you know what? I'm exactly at the level I want to be at. I've got 2 associates, 3 associates. Heck, maybe you've got multiple locations. You're in scale. But one thing that we know is a lot of people, they do scale. They look at the profitability at the end of the month or at the end of the year, and the profitability is the same or less than what they were in build. And so essentially, we've got this job still, that's just a bigger job with kind of more headaches, or potentially you're in scale, but you're looking now to add another associate, and you want to learn how to build them. Okay, then that's this conversations for scale. What you should be focusing on there is about how do you leverage associates? How do you leverage systems? How do you leverage team? How do you leverage training protocols? Okay, the higher level things that will help your entire team grow independent of you. Or maybe you're someone who's listening to this that's thinking, okay, yeah, the next 5 years, if I was to ask you, Lona, 5-year vision story, where do you want to be 5 years from now? And if you say to me, yeah, look, 5 years from now, I don't see it being how it is now. I see myself like changing in some level. I'm not really sure yet how. We're either looking at moving, I'm looking at pulling back, or I'm looking at doing another business venture that's taken off, or whatever it is. Okay, you're an exit. And you want to start planning for exit years before, because if we set up our systems properly, when you do exit, you will exit profitably because you have an amazing asset that's actually worth money to somebody else. It functions as a business. So maybe you're someone who's looking to the future and already looking to create an exit plan. All right, you're in the season of exit. So homework is identify, first of all, which season you're in. Because once you know which one you're in, focus, and what you focus on, love this quote. The difference between busyness and just being busy, and actually productivity, which means moving the needle, is focus. So where you put your energy and where you put your resources makes all the difference in the world. So find out what season you're in, and that's going to dictate everything now and how you listen to this podcast moving forward. Put it through the lens of the season. Dr. Lona, this has been a rocking podcast. I love doing this with you. Any final comments for us?
No, I'm excited. I'm learning from you. This is great. So I'm excited for our next one.
I love it. All right, team, stay tuned. We're going to be unpacking more of this. And hey, if you love this, if you're someone that's listening to this and you're like, yes, this is awesome. Hey, the best way you can help us out, guys, give us a nice 5-star review in the podcast app. And we'll make sure that we send you a nice thumbs up and give you a thank you, hug, a little see as well. Dr. Lona, you are a magician, a rock star. Thank you so much. I'll catch you next time.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Build Your Remarkable Practice podcast. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic, and what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors. If you like the podcast, please subscribe, share with your friends, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, please click the links in the show notes to schedule a call.